Grooming for Adobe Stock integration milestone 2. And I think we can start from stories presentation one by one. Olena, would you like to share your screen?
Okay, yeah, sure, I can share. One second. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically I added new section to Wiki. So we had phase 1 section with list of stories, and here is 2 that basically outlines the kind of goal of that phase to allow user to license the image and save the licensed image file into Magento Media Gallery. And this is a list of stories associated with this phase. So some of that stories created as stories already with the details that we can groom, and some of that still need to kind of get some clarification from Christopher to kind of understand the API possibilities, and some technical discussions needed to kind of understand how that can be achieved in Magento. So this is my first public grooming. Should I start going into the details of each story now?
Yeah, I think we can go story by story, the same way as we do on non-public groomings.
Okay. Okay.
I believe as a result, we should have a bunch of created issues for each story, at least, some notes about issues that we should create after the grooming session.
Yeah, we should have a good understanding of what should be done exactly in relation to each story.
Okay, so let's see if we can achieve that. So the first story in this phase basically sign in. I isolated that into a separate kind of use case because it can be triggered from 2 different places, like a separate sign in when just user decides to authorize themselves in Adobe Stock without outside the licensing process, and the same process will happen when user tries to license the image. But just let's discuss the first case when user is outside the licensing process, just entered Adobe Stock and wants to sign in. So the main business objective is to allow user to authorize themselves in Adobe Stock and have that authentication lasted for a while. So whatever their lifetime of the Adobe Stock token is, that should be their authentication lifetime in Magento Admin for that particular user. So let's say if I'm an admin user logged in into Magento panel and go through that use case, I will be authorized in Adobe Stock only for my admin account for a certain period of time that Adobe Stock supports. So,
Okay,
yeah.
as far as I understand, it's not the sign-in that we currently have that occurs that starts when we click the license button. It's the story where we should add the sign-in link. somewhere to our grid page?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, somewhere on Adobe stock grid, this is for Eugene to define where this link should be. There should be a link that user can activate and the login process starts. And when the login process starts, Adobe login pop-up window appears, and all of the supported login options are there, and user follows the steps that prompted by this pop-up, and basically what we are concerned about the end state of this authorization process that Adobe login returns. So if the login was successful and user is authorized on Adobe stock side, their pop-up just shuts down automatically, and instead of sign-in link, user sees the username he authorized with. But if the authorization wasn't successful, their login pop-up still displays and still open and stays open until user decides to click it. And on Adobe stock side in admin panel, nothing changes. So as I said, if the authorization was successful, it should last for the time that is supported by the API. And this authorization is valid only for the current admin user only. It's not shared between other admin users in the organization. Yeah, so that's for login story by itself.
So we will have two entrance points to the login functionality. We will have the login link, and then we just click on the link and provide all information for login. And the second one, when we're trying to license the image, so if we're not logged in, we will show the pop-up.
Yeah. So there is a separate use case, user license an image, and user story. And within this user story, I just reference the authorization steps in another story. So basically, my suggestion is to start with the login process separately outside of the licensing process, and then reuse the same process in licensing. Basically, build on top of it.
In our case, it will be vice versa, because we do have login enabled during licensing an image, and we will reuse this process during the sign-in link implementation.
Yeah, so the idea is that it should be exactly the same steps and the same behavior and the same communication.
Okay. Can you provide more details about what to use the end result of login, like after I click sign-in link, or after the admin user is logged in? Should it be just the username instead of login link or anything else?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So the username of the user from Adobe stock.
The username of the user who just authorized. So, whatever you used.
Okay. Good. Everything is clear for me. Are there any questions about this story?
Yeah, this is Christopher. I wonder if this should actually be well, I mean, it makes sense that they're broken out, but I just wonder if it actually should be three stories. I wonder if one story should just be about authenticating the user, and then there could be a small story just for adding a UI login. That would be the story 21, or it could be broken out into its own thing. And then, so basically, I would say first, we need to sign in the user somehow through some mechanism. And then once the user is signed in, we get a token, and it can be used for licensing an image. It can also be used to show a little message to them with their name to show them that they are signed in. But I don't know. Maybe this makes sense already. But also, I'm kind of thinking ahead too. Like, if in the future we have to add a different authentication method, it could be a bigger story.
So, yeah, Christopher, that definitely makes sense, what you're talking about. And this story I added as specific to Magento community merchant.
Yeah.
So, because this is something that would make sense for them. And kind of we can break it down more granular as you suggested, but just like the user story need to have like implication from user perspective. So there should be some UI for user to kind of see the result, you know. So that's why kind of I try to take out the login and have some UI that is meaningful, minimum UI that is meaningful for that use case.
Sure. And the other thing is that it's kind of a big request. I think we should keep the UI separate from the process of adding a UI that says log in, sign out, shows the name, shows the status, and all that kind of stuff. I think that should be a separate story from the work needed to do the authentication. It's kind of the work to do the authentication is more back end, whereas I'm thinking that the actual UI that says sign in is more like a front end thing.
I don't know if that matches what you are talking about, but from my perspective, whatever work we do in the scope of the Adobe login implementation, it needs to be separated from the stock implementation itself. So basically, it should be able for any developer to reuse this implementation in any third-party module.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So maybe what you're talking about is more like part of that. So it's a separate functionality that is not coupled with the stock itself. It's just used by stock.
Right. That's true.
So we're expecting that Adobe Stock will already have a token that will try to provide some request for licensing or something else. So we have separate service for authentication, and we should expect the token already exists after that. And yeah, we divide it to the two separate models and two separate bundles, and one will provide the token, and the second one will just use this token. And Adobe Stock part don't know anything about how this token was retrieved.
Yes, that's our plans. Actually, we would like to move the authentication to a separate module and possibly separate package. We do have the authentication engine enabled right now. It is possible to add a second method of authentication along with existing one. Not replacing existing one, but along with existing one. Existing one can be turned off in this case. But in general, yeah, this story is when we will divide it by tasks, it looks like we will have to implement only the UI part, as the backend part is already present in our develop branch. So we will add a sign-in link. We will add some JS that will start the process. We do have a callback controller where we get our code, and the only thing we will need to do is to probably perform an additional request after. So after we'll get the success message in the pop-up window, we are going to update, get the username and update the UI element to show the username instead of login. So it looks to me as one task.
So you will create tasks associated with the story, or what will happen next?
I think we can create tasks after the meeting, just not to slow it down. So let's
Okay.
go. Yeah,
Okay.
if there are no other questions and there is a clear understanding how that can be implemented, we can go to the next story.
Okay, I understand silence as no questions. So the next story is basically licensing an image. So the main advantage of that functionality, obviously, for user to being able to license the image directly in Magento admin and programmatically save the licensed image into Magento Media Gallery. So as a preconditions, we need to mention that user is authorized in Magento admin panel. He already found the image that he wants to license, and he sees the details of that image. So the licensing process starts with user basically pushing the license button, and here we check if the token exists. And if it doesn't exist, the authorization process starts. If token exists and user is already authorized, user sees the information about the license cost of that image and the credits available on their account. And user needs to confirm if he is okay to license the image under that conditions. If user confirms, basically he is navigated to the media gallery interface, to the current folder that was open in that media gallery, and sees the image appear in that folder. We're still trying to figure out what is the naming convention need to be for that file. So this is something that is not finalized itself. So that should be definitely some meaningful name for sure. But what is the format? It's still under discussion. And that image is selected and ready to use in any content where the Magento Media Gallery was called from. So in case user doesn't confirm their licensing, basically he just closes the pop-up and nothing happens. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, I think we do have design, even design for this story. We do have this pop-up in the between our design screenshots, so we can use it for implementation. But I see that Eugen joined the call. Actually, I have a question about the first story that we just passed about the design. Is it available, or when we will be able to see the design of sign-in link? Where should we put it?
Yeah, I'm gonna I'm gonna create the mockups as soon as possible. I think top right corner of the slide out next to the close button would be the most preferred, but I need to test it. Check if it's okay to put there.
Okay.
Does this answer your question?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a pop-up for licensing? I mean, the pop-up with the credit.
Yeah,
and
there should be in the prototype already.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna update the prototype a little bit. I'm gonna create an index page when you can navigate to various flows, because right now you have to click through each button. I'm gonna tidy these things up and put a login flow there as well.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so any questions?
I think this is straightforward. We already started working
Okay.
in that direction. At least authentication is implemented, and the next step is to get user quote and display the pop-up with information about user credits and button to confirm or cancel the purchase. That probably will be the first task, and the second task is actually request to license an image and loading, saving the full-size licensed image. And that's it. At the end of the licensing process, we can reuse the same flow as we already used for saving preview image functionality.
Nice. Okay, so then.
Yeah, 2 tasks for this one.
Okay, next story is, I hope, very small one. So the purpose of this story to help user identify the images that have been already licensed under his or her name in the search image grid. So basically, when user sees the images in the grid, and there are some images that have been already licensed, users see some label on the image that indicates that this particular image was licensed directly in the grid. So user doesn't need to open image details to see that. So this is something that somehow Eugene to define how will be displayed on top of the image or on the side of the image.
We already have implemented overlay component for the inch thumbnail on the grid, so probably we can use it and just add some identification that this image already licensed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we can reuse it.
I think we do have the design for this as well. By the way, Elena, can you open the design just to show support for the story?
Hold on. Can you still see my
Yes.
my screen?
Screen?
Okay.
Yep.
So you see the mockups loading, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, previous image. Here
Oh
it
yeah,
is.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yep.
I didn't notice it. Yeah.
Yep. We can
Okay,
reuse
so I've seen we can request the isLicense field from Adobe Stock API during performing the search request, and use this field value for identification if the image is licensed. However, as far as I see from the documentation, there are several values that can be returned in is licensed field of Adobe Stock API. Let me just really quickly open the reference.
Do you need to share it?
Oh, yeah, I can quickly share.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is a response from API. Is licensed.
Yeah.
Can have different values.
It'll be blank. Yeah, so a string will mean it's licensed. Blank string, a value string will mean it's licensed, and empty would
Do you
mean
mean
it's not
this is a
licensed.
required license? So
So
if is
standard is a
licensed,
license type. Yeah, so standard is a license type versus extended. Standard and extended are pretty much all you would see for images, unless you're also dealing with premium, in which case you could see standard M. But I think it just might be it's not a Boolean, even though it seems like it should be a true false. It actually returns the name of the license. So
yeah, but
yeah.
the question is, if is licensed is set to standard, does it mean that I bought standard licensed and I have this image licensed under standard license, or does it mean that this image requires standard license?
No. So this is a result field that you get back. So if you say return the license state. Wait, go back up. Is there another one on this page for license? A filter. Is there a license filter? So if you do a search for the word license, yeah. So go down further on the left. Oh wait, yeah. So is there anything on the left side?
There is
Yeah,
license history.
Yeah. So basically, you
reference.
just say you're not asking for licensed assets. We don't have a filter to give you licensed assets. All we can do is say when the data comes back, show a field that says whether it is licensed or not. And if it is licensed, it will give you one of those string values: standard, extended.
Okay, so if before I bought an image, I get empty string. After I bought it, I get standard in this field, right?
Correct.
Or extended. Okay,
yeah,
good.
That's correct.
Well, we can check if we received anything except empty string, so this image is licensed.
Exactly. Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, you can also specify the license type in the URL, but I don't think that's not necessary here. This will just tell you whether it is licensed or not and what the name of that license is.
Okay, good. Thanks. Olena, please continue.
Can you see the screen?
Mm-hmm.
So I believe we can move on to the next story, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so the next story is about the situation when user have some images licensed on their name, but they are not stored in Magento Media Gallery. So for some reason, I don't know, like he licensed those images before integration or outside integration with Magento. So when user starts searching the image and the licensed image return in the search result, user see that label that we discussed in the previous story, opens the image details, and if the image was licensed before but not stored in Magento Media Gallery, user sees the option to upload this image into Media Gallery. User activates this option and sees that image uploaded programmatically into the Media Gallery, into the current folder. We follow the same naming convention that we agree on for licensing images, and that image is selected and ready to use. So basically, it's kind of a half process of licensing images, just with the exception that license happened outside the integration.
Okay, so in this case, we are going to merge the result of the search request to API together with the information from our database to identify if image is saved in the current Magento instance, and in case it is saved, we are going to show the different version of license button. So instead of license and save, it will show the label will be just save, right? Or
I mean, this
download.
is for Eugene to define. So the purpose of that button would be save the image, bypassing the licensing process. Does this make sense?
Yeah. We still need design for this one. So still waiting for Eugene to decide.
Yeah, but essentially it's just different label of the same button.
Yeah. Also, in the scope of the story, I want to bring up the question about the multiple instances of a single image in Magento. Like if admin user would like to save an image, the same image from Adobe stock in the first folder of Media Gallery, and then repeat the separation in the second folder of Media Gallery. Should we allow it? What is our approach to this situation?
So kind of my idea was that we kind of, most likely that could happen not intentionally, but just by mistake. And this is something that we at least need to inform user about. But like from my perspective, their image management, once the image is saved into Magento Media Gallery, need to happen on Media Gallery side. So if user wants to kind of move the image from one folder to another, there is a functionality in Magento Media Gallery to do that. We shouldn't like use Adobe stock to do that. So I would my suggestion is to kind of prevent user from saving the same image into different folder structure, just to prevent like the content duplication that most likely happen accidentally. But it still can happen, I believe, and this is like something that maybe we need to discuss, because, for example, what will happen if different users licensed the same image on different Adobe stock IDs and save that image into the media gallery? Will it be the same image, or it will be completely two different images that have no connection with each other?
It would be two different images with two different names.
But there will.
I wonder why, because I mean, if it's the same image and it was the same ID, why it's different?
But maybe just another license.
It's basic media gallery functionality. So if you want to upload or download several images with the name cars, but it's different images, completely different images. So you need to save all of them because it's different images, but with the same name.
Well, they'll always have a unique ID. So I mean, I guess if you look up, if you're storing the image ID and you do a lookup and say, does that image ID already exist? It would make sense. You'd only have it there once.
In scope of Adobe Stock Image, yes, it's correct. We already have the identifiers that we can just see that we already downloaded this image and show message to the user that you already have this message image.
Oh,
so
guys,
basically,
I have a question about.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Just and what about next possible functionality? For example, I download license image at the folder name A, yes, and then I just not accidentally, but I understand that what I want to have this image at the folder B, for example, yes, but I do not save it because it already exists, but I assign it to the folder B because just if it's possible to assign image to the folder and not to move it physically to it.
But what it means, like purpose, assign, because the media
assign it means okay, yes, I understand, but I saw that for example,
like an alias.
Yes, like an alias. For example, I have an image at the folder A, yes, and for example, I want to have it at the folder B. I mean, just in the media gallery, I don't know, and I just assign it to it. So the image physically appears at the one folder, yes, but it also appears at the database entity at another.
I mean, like Magento Media Gallery is very straightforward tool. So it basically shows the folders, physical folders where the image is stored. It's not like a parameter or something, right?
Yeah, I don't think there is too much difference between creating a symlink and just copying the same file from the functionality point of view. Yeah, I just wanted to confuse. I think that
I want to add one simple case. Let's imagine that we will have hundreds of folders in our Magento Media Gallery, and I'm trying to save exactly this image to my folder number 1025, and I see the message that I already have this image, but I don't know which folder contains this image. But I need this image right now, and it's difficult to find it.
No. So like when you not just see that you already have the image, you actually navigated to the folder where image is, and like you see the image selected in that folder. So this is like the intended use case. But my questions, like I wasn't sure how to handle the situation when the image was licensed under someone's name, and technically it's like from my understanding, this image that licensed under someone else's name should be stored in Magento Media Gallery with exactly the same parameters as if I would license it. The only changes that I would kind of assume to have that I wouldn't have the parameter that this image is like licensed in the grid of images that I see in Adobe Stock. But on Magento side, there is no difference. Once the image saved in the media gallery, it doesn't really matter who licensed. Yeah, exactly. It's shareable, so it doesn't really matter who licensed it. It's just an image with certain parameters and certain ID.
Okay, this functionality that points to the folder where image was saved, is it part of this story or the next story, or is it part of any story at all?
Sorry, which use case? I kind of missed it.
When the image is already saved and you try to save it second time.
This is exactly the story. So hold on. No, it's a separate story. We kind of mixed multiple discussions in one, so I just kind of lost the track. Yeah, so we have a separate story for the case when kind of we have an information that image exists already in media gallery, and we show the different button for the user, not just save the image, but rather like locate that image in the media gallery. So user will just be navigated to the folder of the media gallery with that image, and the image would be highlighted in that folder. So basically, this in this case, we just help user to find the image that was already stored and kind of prevent unnecessary file duplication.
Okay, so at the end we'll have three states of the button, of the
Yeah,
license button. First
exactly.
one, when the image is not licensed, it will say license and save.
Yeah.
Second state, if the image is licensed but is not downloaded, we'll call it something like download. And the third state, when the image is licensed and is downloaded, we will just
show this image
name it select, and when admin user clicks the button, it will open the folder in media gallery where this image is stored and select the image to be ready to insert it to the content, right?
Yeah.
Okay, do we do this for licensed image only, or we expect to have the same functionality for preview, like saved previews?
What do you mean?
Like if the preview was already saved, do we change the button for save preview?
I don't think we need to invest in and make the preview functionality that complicated. So we have a third phase in our project that we need to work on replacing the preview with the licensed image, and like this is basically kind of the only.
Yeah, then
really
it's
doesn't
possible to
matter.
save.
We can reuse it for both cases, for the preview as well. We already have the Adobe ID for the preview too. And
So basically,
we can check it's already downloaded or not.
okay, so basically you suggest kind of to help user somehow to locate their preview images, right?
It's the same,
No,
the same process
thing
for
is
licensed.
the thing is that we have to. Sorry, the
Well,
thing is that we have to apply
I agree.
a single approach.
This is Christopher. I'm on a I'm outside of the house now. I'm in a car. I think yeah. I mean, if you allow the user to download a preview multiple times to different folders, and then later they replace that with a licensed image, then you might have to go through and check for all instances of it, and that could get really messy. So maybe you should only allow them to download the preview one time. That way you don't have, otherwise they might end up with a case where they have one licensed version in folder A and then preview versions in folders B, C, and D.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I just overlooked that. Yeah, that totally makes sense. So basically we need to have the same states for preview, just kind of to avoid the situation that Christopher described.
And probably we should name images, both images, preview images and license images with the same name. It helps us replace the image when we're trying to license it. For example, we downloaded preview with the name, preview 123, added this image to the several content pages, and we need just replace the image with the same name. And we will try to avoid the content updates on every page.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that totally makes sense. Yeah, the naming convention is something that, yeah, we will describe the kind of requirements to the naming convention maybe in a separate story because it seems like need to be thought through.
Are we considering to use the title or still
Yeah,
in
yeah.
discussion?
I mean, titles seem to be the most reasonable approach. So the only like question how to handle situations when there are some symbols in the
The
title
problem,
that.
yeah, exactly. That's the problem with title. It might not be. It might be in a completely different language, like even Chinese. Whereas if you just name it Adobe stock _ ID,
Yeah, it's really
that
one of
could
the
be
most
generic.
reliable case.
So the concern was like Adobe stock ID. I mean that naming convention to me works for preview perfectly. I mean just like by itself. Because preview is not gonna be published on the live website, right? But for the images that are going to be published on the website or sent in email, this kind of namings for file
Right.
not ideal.
They're not better than existing one. Existing naming is some kind of hash, and the ID of the
Okay, if we compare to that, of course.
That's also like the same sense for the end user. But I would say that considering what Stas said, we should treat preview and licensed image file names the same way, because we are not going to update the file name when we are saving licensed image or when we are replacing preview image.
Yeah, so that
Yep.
naming convention should be unified for all of the stock images, regardless if they preview or
Yeah,
license.
with this approach, we will don't need to update content pages, page cache, CD, or not CDNs, but fastly cache or any cache system that we should update after each content update.
Let's probably try to use some kind of I don't know, Japanese, Hindi, Mandarin, Russian names for images and see how it works. I think it should be okay because these names are UTF-8 and the worst that can happen, they will be URL encoded or will require the encoding. But
Yeah,
anyway,
I
most
believe
of the images.
title can be changed by author. So you can add title, just simple title, and decide it after half of the year to change it to the complex title, and it will be two different images.
But this is one-way connection. So we are taking the title that exists on image at the moment we save the image, right? If user, for example, save the preview as one title, and then it becomes.
Let me throw you a curveball here. What if we actually allow user to enter the file name when the licensing happens?
Oh wow!
Because let me try to explain. It's because, as we discussed before, the title, the file name is actually important for search engine optimization, and the Adobe stock title, the way I see,
they do the same. In AEM, they do the same thing. When you upload an image, it allows you to put in a name. Now, internally, they save two attributes. One is the public name, and one is the internal file name. But yeah, you could suggest to them the default, which is just ID.
We can put a title, URL-friendly title. We can convert it and put it in the field. If they're okay with that, it's okay. If they're not, they can change that. But what I see right now, titles in Adobe Stock, they're pretty long because author tries to, you know, make it search findable. So he puts a lot of keywords in the title. So that is, I see, a problem if we just convert the title blindly. So
you get a mixed bag. Some of them are really super short, and some of them are super long, and there's no consistency.
So what about
I think if you save the name, you should just cut it off after a certain number of characters. Otherwise, it gets kind of silly.
That would be another option, yes.
What about matching the preview with the licensed image later on? Will we be still able to do it if the user just like entered some custom image name? How we will match and what we will do?
We are saving
using
image metadata to the database, and we can match this image by the Adobe ID. But we still need to keep the preview image name for the license image to avoid content updates.
So basically, we won't ask the image name when user license the image from preview, right? So basically, we need to ask the file name when user saves the preview, and we need to ask the file name when user license the image that doesn't have the preview saved, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
But at this point, will we know if the preview is there?
Well, we will definitely know if it's linked. If it's not linked.
What does it mean, linked?
I mean, if we're still tracking the preview, if it wasn't moved to file system.
If the metadata is there, right, we know that it has a file with certain custom name, and we just like, okay, replace the file with the same name but with a higher resolution option, right?
Yeah, so basically if there is any record for, there are two conditions. First one is that we do have a record in the database for the media ID, for the Adobe ID of the image, and second condition is that file is still present in file system file from our records, and then we can say that there is either preview or licensed image saved already.
So I'm sharing something weird now. So basically, I understand that with that approach, it would be difficult to separate phase 2 and phase 3 because kind of file name basically makes them connected a lot. Or it will be still possible to follow
There are no dependency that I can see actually. The only thing we have to agree on is that a preview and license will have the same name. And once image saved, in any way, is it preview or license, once some particular image with media ID on Adobe site is saved, we are not updating the image name.
Okay, so if we don't implement the replacing replacing preview with the licensed image at this point, and I license an image that I already have preview for, it will be stored as a new image, right?
No, we'll replace the preview in this case.
So it means that we implement the phase 3, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I am not complaining.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, partially. In phase, yeah, it looks like so.
Yeah,
I mean,
we can implement it with saving the completely new image, but it doesn't make sense. We can just replace it
I
at the
agree.
same time.
I agree. So that's why we kind of combine these two phases.
I'm not sure. Does phase 3 includes bulk preview image update or no? Or
What
it's
do you mean bulk update?
like if I design my website, add several preview images, and then I want to publish it to production, I want to update each of them at once, like to buy everything.
And how
Or
it should look like? You just select several images and update it, or you want to update all preview images to the license?
I don't know. I was just trying to understand what exactly is waiting for us in milestone 3.
Yeah, I'm showing like what is the scope in phase 3. So it's basically displaying the attributes that we already stored in the phase 1 in the database for image in Media Gallery UI. And have some button inside the Media Gallery on preview image that allows to license that preview and then replace that preview with the
Okay,
license.
Media Gallery, you mean
Can we-
the Adobe Stock Grid, right?
Nope.
Media Gallery?
Media Gallery meaning Magento Media Gallery. So you have preview stored there, right? So you need to replace that. You don't need to find that image once again. So this is the point. You just have the preview in the Media Gallery and you click the button and it gets licensed.
Can we go back for a little about the image name? I see that we don't have ability to rename images in our media gallery. So let's imagine that we can rename these images. And you save image from the Adobe stock with any name that we want. For example, Adobe stock _ID. And after user, if he want, he will rename this image with the name that he want. We can handle this event and just put correct name in our database. And when we decide to license image that was saved as preview, we just merge this by Adobe ID and replace this image with the same name as user defined by yourself before.
So,
Once again, do you mean there is a functionality to change image name in Media Gallery?
Excuse me, we are out of time and I have another meeting, so I need to drop. So maybe let's.
Okay, we have another meeting scheduled for tomorrow, so we can continue.
Okay, yeah, let's
tomorrow,
do that.
Yeah, thanks everybody for participating.
Thank you, guys.
See you tomorrow, 4 o'clock Austin time.
Bye. Have a good
4
day.
p.m. Yeah, bye-bye.
See you. Thank you. Bye.